How do you pick a custom knife? Folks, I recently had a direct request from a listener and viewer on YouTube that I show off and review a few of Evan Siembida's specific hunting knife models. He just wants to see the difference, and so that's what I'm here to do today. Just a brief little YouTube episode showcasing some of my favorite knives. Now, Evan Siembida Custom Knives, has been working with us here at the podcast for years now, and together we designed what I feel like is the best hunting knife I've ever used. Of course, most of it was Evan's genius, not mine, but I had some input in it, and so as a result I got a little pride of ownership in the design as well. That's the Northern Shrike model. All of Evan's knives are named after birds. His logo is a bird skull, and it's just kind of a thing he does. So the Northern Shrike, we'll tell you more about that here in a minute, but the one that inspired me to start working with Evan and really impressed me about his business, his ethos of craftsmanship and so forth, was his little meadowlark knife. So that's this one. It's a compact backcountry hunting knife, or just all-purpose knife. This one's got green burlap scales with some orange liners in it, and it's got a fairly short blade, fairly short handle. It's really nimble. You can get inside carcasses and so forth and work with it very, very comfortably. However, much as I love this, I felt like it was a little bit small to be doing tasks like boning out elk in the backcountry. I've done more than one with this very knife, but I wanted something with a little bit longer blade, a little bit longer handle, but still very light. And so that excuse me, led to the development of the Northern Shrike. And we do these limited runs. We sell them only through the podcast. You just have to listen and win a limited run. We've done anywhere from a dozen to about 40 per type. When a limited run is announced, you just call Evan or text him and get on the list, and he'll build you one. He doesn't take pre-orders for these. He won't put your name on a list to be notified. It's just sold through the podcast. Usually it takes weeks to several months to get one of his knives because he's back ordered a fair bit. So as you can see, this Northern Shrike is a little bit longer in the blade, a little bit longer in the handle. It has a beautiful tapered tang on it, and inside that tang is skeletonized, so these knives don't actually weigh much more than the meadowlark. We came up with the name, the Northern Shrike, just researching different types of birds, and a nickname for the Northern Shrike is the butcher bird. Apparently the males, their courtship display in the springtime is to find a thorn bush and stab little fragments of meat on all the thorns on this bush, and then they'll sit in the bush and give out their mating call, basically sing pretty, and attract females. And they're showing the female that they can provide for her and their young by all this meat hung on thorns in this bush. And I thought that is just the coolest thing. Evan thought the same thing. And so this knife is named after the butcher bird, rather appropriate for backcountry hunters. The Northern Shrike, they're not cheap, usually shipped to your door with cutting edge materials that Evan uses. They'll run in the neighborhood of $350 to $425. Sometimes he uses glow carbon, a carbon fiber that glows when you shine your headlamp on it. It'll glow neon for a while. Helps you find them if you drop them next to the carcass in the leaves in the dark or whatever, if you're working on an animal. They just have a wonderful balance and feel in your hand. They've got a scalloped portion on each side. That was one of the design features I wanted because it helps me orient the knife perfectly depending on how I'm working without looking at it. Evan builds all his own Kydex sheaths. This little lip right here was a suggestion by my friend Joe Kennedy, lifelong hunting partner. It's been a great one because with that friction snap fit, you can just grab and push. The earlier design didn't have that, and you had to kind of tug it out. Anyway, that's the Northern Shrike. This one's the Meadowlark. Let's talk about a couple of Evan's larger typical hunting knives. This one is called the Magpie, and it's got a blade that's about the same length as the Shrike. Even the handle's about the same length. It's just a beefier type of hunting knife. Standard size, standard weight, full tang. It's a really robust, strong knife, hand filling, feels good. It's a little heavy for me, so I don't carry this into the backcountry, but it's great for butchering tasks around the farm or whatnot. And most of the knives Evan builds will not have an antler or horn or bone scales on them because they're a little unstable. You can go from one extreme of humidity to the other, or even in different heats and so forth. Those organic material scales can move. And what with Evan's focus on perfection, stability, reliability, he really prefers to work with high-tech composites. So here's another one that I really like. This is the Kestrel. It's a fairly strongly dropped point with a robust handle as well, and a very thick shank on it. And these are made to be real strong out of a very resilient material. This is the type of knife you can pound into a small tree with a baton, a chunk of wood you've picked up, and then pound it around the circumference of that tree and actually cut the tree down if you need to. That's that level of toughness this knife has. It's also, this is really a bushcrafting knife, right, that translates or crosses over nicely into butchering tasks. Evan leaves the edges on the back of the knife sharp so that you can use those edges on steel, flint and steel style. So this is kind of a hillbilly solution here, but I've just hot glued a good striker on the steel on the back of the Kydex sheath for this knife. So I can pull it out, and if I get the angle right, I can run some pretty smoky, serious sparks out of that if I need to light a fire. So that's kind of my bushcrafting knife from Evan Siembida. And all these will range in a variety of costs, from about $225, I think, for a simple Meadowlark, up to in that $400 range for the really nicer stuff. And I don't have one here to show you right now. These are his hunting knives, but Evan builds a terrific chef's knife as well, several different models. So finally, here's my fillet knife. This is a compact fillet knife, kind of appropriate for doing panfish and so forth. And I'm not a great fisherman, so I haven't got to use it as much as I'd like, but really nimble, slicey little fillet knife. And I confess I've forgotten the specific name of this one, but Evan does a couple of different sizes of fillet knife, ranging up from the big stuff appropriate for big fish down to the little stuff that you'd use, keep in your tackle box for panfish, smaller bass, and so forth. Anyway, that's a roundup of Evan Siembida's hunting and kind of outdoorsy specific knives that I've got. I've used them all. I love them all. This one is hands down my go-to. I use a Northern Shrike on every hunt that I go on, and not because we've partnered on the show, but because I honestly believe it's the best hunting knife I've ever used. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this overlook. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them. And in the show description, I will put a link to Evan's Instagram page, which is where he does most of his business, posts lots of pictures, as well as his phone number, in case you'd care to call him and order one yourself.